Okay, this is another part of the Angling Trust's annual Sea Angling Review, and with me now is Nevin Hunter, who's our Marine Regions Coordinator. He's going to explain about some of the things that he's been doing on behalf of sea anglers for the Angling Trust over the last 12 months. So welcome, Nevin. So just to start off with, what do you feel is your most important role working for the Angling Trust over the last 12 months?
Right. Yeah, I started my role, Tim, in 2019, in the middle of 2019. It was the first time we'd had a Marine Regions Coordinator. I have worked for the Angling Trust for a number of years, mainly on the freshwater side, but this was an opportunity for me to follow my real angling interest, to do with recreational sea anglers. And the first thing that we looked at was, what are the key things that I should focus on? What are the needs of recreational sea anglers around England? And to do that, we undertook a survey. Nearly 2,500 people were contacted for that survey to find out what their views were. And we had a huge response for a survey of this type, with nearly 750 replies from anglers from across the whole of England. Representing nearly 33% of all the people that were invited to take part, which showed the level of interest. Well, we know nationally surveys often don't get much more than 10, 11, 12% in terms of replies. So it was great that we firstly got that level of response, and really picking over the responses from the survey has allowed us really to focus on 4 key areas. Firstly, communication. It was quite clear to us that anglers liked communication from us, but the majority of them liked to see our sea newsletter. What the feedback showed us was that recreational sea anglers really valued the sea newsletter. It seemed to be the one thing that people made comment about that they would read each month that we put that out. So we have encouraged as many people over the last year or two to sign up. You don't have to be an Angling Trust a member. And on that sea newsletter, which comes out monthly, we update and try and keep recreational sea anglers abreast of all of the key issues going on, not only involving the work of the Angling Trust, but the wider political work that impacts on anglers, such as the development of the Fisheries Bill. So that was the first thing, building those communications. Secondly, helping to increase participation. Anglers are really keen that we would get involved with that, sourcing funding, looking towards a potential network of key volunteers that could support me around England, and that's really key for us to have, so that we can build links directly into clubs, and we've got some really good volunteers already that are helping. And so the third thing that people really wanted us to focus on was hosting forums, so that anglers could have a means to speak to us directly. Really keen that, although we've run a survey, we actually want to hear what anglers have got to say, what are their issues out on the ground. So we ran 4 forums, started in Cornwall, then we went on to Eastney in Hampshire, Brighton, and then in Brixham in Devon. And that was real opportunities then to speak to anglers, listen to what their concerns were, but also to outline to them the key work that we've been involved with. Again, we were hoping to deliver further on that this year, but we've had big impacts again with COVID to do with that. But we know that people now have turned to things like Zoom, as we're talking now, and Teams and other mechanisms you can do so with virtual forums. So we're now looking to deliver virtual forums focused on probably subject areas, so things that anglers are going to be interested in. Lots of work, lots of interest. We're really keen actually to hear from anglers what is it they would like us to be talking about. In the future, I think where we'll go with these is we'll reflect what the Angling Trust is doing more widely, which is we've got to get into the virtual world in reality, and we will get a balance between virtual forums and hopefully face-to-face forums when we can meet people in the future.
Can anybody turn up to these forums? I mean, do you have to be a member?
No, again, I should have mentioned that, Tim, but yeah, you don't have to be a member. Anybody can sign up to the forums. And of course, the great thing is, the ones that we ran last year, we ran as evening events in the midweek, and that had an impact on people with travel and everything else. But actually, if we do it online, of course, you can do it from the comfort of your home.
One of the things that I get asked a lot is, obviously those meetings that you were talking about were all held on the South Coast. It would be very nice to be able to expand them and include anglers from the northeast, the northwest, eastern, and what are we going to be able to do about that? Because obviously Zoom's going to make that easier, but how are we going to contact and encourage these people?
Yeah, well, the great advantage if we do stuff virtually is that they will be offered out across the country. We delivered the face-to-face forums last year, 3 of them in the traditional marine regions that we've had. We'd be really keen to look at, certainly engaging with anglers across the whole of England. Perhaps the first way we can get people from across England to take part would be that we do them virtually. And as we know, the real challenges with angling, sea angling clubs, same as angling clubs anywhere, is people having enough time to spend to run the committees alone. Do we want to put another sort of tier of bureaucracy in for them to have a regional committee? That may be more than perhaps is realistic nowadays. But what we can do is to make sure we link into local anglers at every level around England. And one of the issues that regularly comes up is anglers in the Midlands. They may not have anywhere that they can go fishing there, but we know that there are huge numbers of sea anglers in the Midlands, but they actually travel. They've probably got the best of both worlds because they can travel east, north, south and west.
They do.
Perhaps more readily than somebody like myself who lives down in South Devon. There's we're keen to support them as well.
I mean, it's important, isn't it, to make sure we maximise communication right across the whole of the country. It is a tricky thing. I know I've been involved, as you have, for a number of years trying to do this, and these forums could be really, a bit of a game changer.
Well, I think the key for us as well going forward, Tim, is going to be what is it that anglers want to know about. So there are other issues that we know that anglers have got real concerns about. We would quite happily, for instance, host in each of the regions perhaps a speaker from each of the IFCAs in turn. What would be really good is in the run up to perhaps any type of forum is because of the fact that we'll be asking people to register, I'll be involved in sort of correspondence with people. People tell us what they want to ask the IFCAs, because if we get enough anglers asking the same question, however uncomfortable that could make them, or even, in terms of the positive work as well that the IFCAs do, let's see the things that anglers want to ask them about. We know that, some of the IFCAs have really good liaison with sea anglers, but others don't. But this could be the mechanism and even the trigger perhaps for some of them to try and build those contacts.
Of course, they are recruiting at the moment. Obviously, we're encouraging as many anglers as possible to apply to be on those committees.
Yeah, absolutely, and we need to make sure that the angling voice is heard by the IFCAs with when they're speaking to commercial fisheries, and considering the new framework really that the new fisheries legislation brings forward. It gives us a real opportunity. But I always say to people that anglers are the best conservationists out there as well. So it's really important that we can play a part as well in a much broader protection of the marine environment. That being involved with the IFCAs give us a real opportunity to do that. Yeah,
okay, that's very true. So what about your contact with clubs and members directly, and the sort of advice and support you can give them? Because that's obviously another important part of it, alongside these forums, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. I think a really important thing as well is that I now get notified every time we get a new sea angling club joining the Angling Trust. We've had, I think it's reflected with the way in which the trust has got involved and raised the profile of angling with government during COVID, and the getting us back fishing, all of that wider impact that the trust has seen an increase in membership. We've seen now with new sea angling clubs coming on board as well, and every time that we get a new sea angling club contact us, I then get in contact with them. I make sure that they understand that I'm a day-to-day contact, because the sea angling aspect of our work within the trust has been small over the years for a variety of reasons, but I'm now that day-to-day contact. I can offer that to clubs. I'm able to find out and point people in the right direction, making sure then that clubs feel that they can come to me where they start to get issues. And I can give a really good example, and issues down at Hope Snows, a really well-known spot for anglers. The concerns really came up with firstly sea angling clubs, but also it's a beautiful site down there, a site of special scientific interest, well protected from a conservation point of view. But over the summer months in particular, over the last couple of years, they've had real problems down there with predominantly camping, setting barbecues, catching large numbers of fish. It's a brilliant mackerel spot, and people taking, time to suggestions were almost on an industrial scale. Huge numbers of mackerel, cooking them, leaving rubbish. Really, you can only describe it as antisocial behaviour. And it got to the point where the local community, as well as the local anglers, are then saying, we're not prepared to go down there. We identified, with some work around that there were issues to do with migrant anglers, people fishing down there. And actually, we got involved closely with a group of local Romanian anglers who were mainly had worked during lockdown and previously in the hospitality areas working in South Devon, and they were keen anglers and they loved going down to the spots, and they were pretty perturbed by the sort of reputation that migrant anglers were getting down there. So we brought them together with the Building Bridges team and the local conservation agencies, police, met with them and said, look, there are things that we could do potentially to help you. And they were looking at preventing all types of angling, and we persuaded them around that actually let's try and look at some preventive work and trying to work with individuals down there to try and identify if there were recurrent problems and what we could do to help them. And so we got the Building Bridges team directly involved. We targeted a number of social media sites where we knew migrant anglers came down to, even things like YouTube. People were putting YouTube videos on, showing that they were going down to Hope's Nose and the like. And then we coupled that with actual direct visits with the Building Bridges team, going down with enforcement officers, police officers, speak to anglers in their own languages. Predominantly, we found that they're Romanian and Polish people. They weren't local anglers. These were people travelling from London and elsewhere, taking more than they were allowed to under the terms of the local bylaws down there. They were given fixed penalty notices and prosecuted. And the key thing for that, Tim, for us was not only did it make the Angling Trust look really good in terms of support to local groups that really, conservation groups, police and others that hadn't really had any contact with us, but we were able to persuade them by using the Building Bridges team, anglers who, originally migrant anglers themselves, but who worked closely with us on the freshwater team, that, there was a place for them in support for the wider, angling community. And importantly, local anglers felt reassured now and are more confident about going back there and fishing. And this is, I can see this now as being a bit of a model for where we've had other problems. So, and I'd be really keen to know if people get these issues elsewhere, please do get in contact, because we've got resource now, and a model that we've used down in South Devon that really can resolve the issues without seeing the authorities go to the draconian steps of banning angling altogether.
But unless anglers are organised and able to find some point of contact where they can get access to the authorities to be able to explain their case, then it becomes quite difficult, doesn't it?
Yeah, well, we're seeing, this example down here as one of the Coast and Countryside Service guys said to me, he said, we now see you as part of the solution in the Angling Trust, not part of the problem. We've actually looked to reach out to people in the, in the migrant Chinese community to say, if you're going fishing, how can we, let's make sure you understand what the rules and regulations are. Yeah. Coming back to the South Devon case, a really good thing there with the Romanian anglers that lived locally and were dismayed by what they had seen, as well as they've now got contacts into the sea angling clubs locally that they didn't have, and hopefully there's some membership increases which can only help those clubs. We want to reassure anglers now that we in the trust can do stuff to help them, but also there's opportunities for them to bring new members into sea angling. Yeah,
which is really important, isn't it? Those things that you've described are really important parts of the Angling Trust work, and in fact, moving forward, I think we'll be getting much more regional in the way that we approach all our angling interests, I think, but sea angling in particular has specific local issues all over the country, which is why I mentioned the northeast and the northwest and so forth, because what they experience in those areas can sometimes be different, and we need to be responsive to that. What about the future of for you, and what you're looking forward to in terms of what you're going to do in the next couple of years?
Yeah, so we mentioned the forums already. That's really important. But contact, I've mentioned already about the volunteer network. We're really keen to build on that. a network of volunteers, really to support the work and provide that direct link for me would be really important. Another issue that sort of regularly comes up now for us, and has particularly come up over the last year or two, has been around the role that we have linking into what I call loosely the enforcement authorities. You know, what happens if an angler does see something, either of another angler who's taking fish when they shouldn't have done, fishing in areas that they shouldn't do, or whether even if they spot things commercially they think are going on that are potentially illegal. How do we ensure that we can report that to the authorities in the right way? And is there a simple one-stop shop for recreational sea anglers to raise their concerns? We actually wanted to know, how do anglers generally contact people like the IFCAs, people like the Marine Management Organisation?
Not easy, is it?
Absolutely not. And I know from some of the work that I've seen and some of the some of the things that have been reported to me, that anglers are seeing things and are getting frustrated at times about, well, who do I tell? Who should I ring? We've raised that concern. We had a meeting a couple of months ago directly with the Marine Management Organisation and the head of what's called the National Inshore Marine Enforcement Group. They've really got their act together in the last couple of years, without a doubt. And having met them now, we're really encouraged to see that they are going down the line now of, soon, hopefully in the new year, we will be getting that centralised number then that we can contact as anglers, and that's something we'll certainly be looking to publicise when that goes live. But we see that as a really positive move. Something else that I think is really important for us, Tim, over the next year as well, is to raise, to help to look to raise standards within sea angling clubs as well. And anybody watching this piece, may well be aware already of our Fishmark. For anybody who isn't, Fishmark is an accreditation scheme that the Angling Trust has launched recently. It's an updated version of accreditation schemes that we've run previously, but we're really keen that we get sea angling clubs involved with this as well. It's about clubs being able to show that they reach minimum standards in terms of participation, safety, safeguarding of, particularly important if we want to get youngsters involved with fishing now. And actually, what clubs will get out of that is, being able to use the Fishmark logo. It should hopefully then act as a positive impact, so that if people are looking to go fishing for the first time, that they will be able to see that, clubs are accredited with Fishmark. And if you get involved with that club and go to a coaching session, perhaps they're running for youngsters or something like that, that they're going to be done in a way that is safe. That's something that certainly we're looking to move forward on. In the next year.
Absolutely, yeah. Well, Fishmark is very. It's not a new initiative, particularly, but it is effective. And I know at least two clubs I'm a member of down here on the Sussex coast are Fishmarked. And I think it's an important way of show, as you say, of demonstrating to new people coming into it, particularly parents of children, that they can trust the club that they're working with. So that's great news.
Yeah, here's a great example of how Fishmark can work on the south coast down where you are in Bexhill. We've got a key volunteer down there, Brian Pask, who's done some brilliant work with youngsters. And what Brian has done, and this is the sort of work that we really would hope, without COVID, we could have progressed, is Brian's built himself as sort of almost a model of the way in which he's worked with the local club then to get youngsters involved. So Brian has made sure that we've got, any of the sort of participation events that he's been involved with down there flagged up on the What's On page every time that he put an event on. They were oversubscribed. There were more people interested because there were people coming on holiday. They were looking at what's going on in the local fishing. I've never had a go at it. I've never been to sea angling. What if the kids be interested? It's that sort of thing that people signed up to. But the fact that people have then been able to see the professional way in which Brian has gone about the work that he's done with that, that's a brilliant example of the sort of things that, we'd hope that clubs will be taking on moving ahead.
That's excellent. Okay. Well, thank you very much indeed, Nevin, for all your hard work for the Angling Trust and for explaining what you've been doing and what the Angling Trust has been doing on behalf of sea anglers. Important work. Is there anything you want to say in conclusion?
The major thing I'd say is that thank you for the help from all that have got in contact with me over the last year and a half. You know, I'd love people to get in contact with me again when they've listened to this. But most importantly, please do sign up to the free C newsletter, because you will find out what's going on within the trust, how we can support you. But actually, we really want to hear from anglers as well. And I'm that face-to-face contact on a daily basis, hopefully. You know, let us know what your concerns are, and we can then, you know, look to address those. So please do get in contact, sign up to the newsletter, and you'll find my details on there, as well as my colleague David Mitchell, who leads on all marine issues.
Thank you very much, Nevin. Excellent.